Showcasing local talent, professionals, and everyday people making Salt Lake City what it is today. It's time for another episode of the I Am Salt Lake podcast.
Welcome to episode 74 of the I Am Salt Lake podcast. My name is Chris Hollifield. Welcome to my show. Welcome to the podcast where I introduce you to locals, professionals, individuals, just everyday people that I believe is making Salt Lake City just a little bit better, making me proud to call this city home. So welcome to my show. I'm slowly creeping towards episode 100. I got some big plans for that episode, so you're not going to want to make sure you subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher Radio. We're also on Mediocre Radio Network. That way you do not miss a single beat along the way. I got some really great shows ahead. And like I said, slowly creeping towards episode 100. Hard to believe I've made it that far. IamSaltLake.com is a website. You got all the contact information right there. Drop me an email, call me up on the voicemail. Love to hear from my listeners. This episode, let me tell you, I am really excited to bring it to you. I had an opportunity to sit down with Kerry Jackson from X96's Radio from Hell. You guys, I'm sure you've heard of it. And if you haven't, cannot highly recommend you enough to turn your dials on the radio to 96.3 Radio from Hell, Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Really, really great show with Kerry, Bill, and Gina. And, when I think of Salt Lake City, there's a few things I think of. I think of the mountains, the snow, the religious architecture, and I think of X96 Radio from Hell. And I was really honored to have Kerry come over to my place and sit down, have a conversation, find out about how he got into radio, how Radio from Hell started. And we also kind of found out what he likes about Salt Lake City. And that was a really, really, really great time that I had with him. I'm really excited to bring you this episode. And I'm going to quit rambling just so we can get right into that conversation that I had with Kerry Jackson from X96's Radio from Hell.
You want to hear a story of disappointments? Of meeting people that you've wanted to meet?
Absolutely.
I've got a ton of them.
Let's do it. Well, do you want to start with that?
I can, sure.
Well, let's just start with who you are.
You're the host. I'll follow.
You're going to take control of the show. I love it. Who's Kerry Jackson? Where are you from? What got you into radio? Let's start there. I mean, that's a big question right off the bat.
Well, the quick answer to what got me into radio is, and it's quite honest, and it's not the most lofty of. So I did it to meet girls. That's why. I wanted to meet girls. I wanted to get laid. That's why I got into radio.
And did it work for you?
Yes.
Really?
And unfortunately, yes. Again, there are a whole bunch of stories. No, I was just raised on a small farm in Salem, Utah, which is, since this is I Am Salt Lake, about 45 minutes south of here.
I know exactly where it is.
Utah County. It's in between the small towns of Payson and Spanish Fork. So Salem was like the Mayberry Mount Pilot connection. Salem, Spanish Fork. If you're old, Andy Griffith references. Excuse me.
I love Andy Griffith.
So that's what that was. The town at the time that I was raised there was just this population of maybe 3,000-4,000 people. Everybody knew everybody, and everybody had a farm. And it was a small town built around a lake. Just beautiful. And now it's a yuppie bedroom community. But luckily, Dad's property is still there by the lake, which means cha-ching. Now that all the yuppies want to move there, the price of the property went up. But it was just all, it was all farmland as far as the eye could see growing up there.
Yeah.
And, everybody knew everybody, and everybody was Mormon. And there were like 3 wards. And, just...
Now, were you raised Mormon? If you mind me asking,
I was yes, raised a Mormon, baptized. Yeah. I'm still on record, I think.
Yeah.
in the paperwork.
Well, I mean, I was raised Mormon myself, so we have something in common. Yeah. As the rest of Utah. No, anyway, so
growing up though in this town, you could see it was this. Everyone. It really was on to look at, just idyllic. You know, but I always could tell and sense that there was something dark going on. It was something not quite right, which is why I always referred to the town as Mayberry on acid, because there was a secret there. There was something going on. And as I got older, I began to notice and see things, and hence why I stopped going to church at age 14.
So you got out pretty young.
Yeah. and it broke my mother's heart. Still breaks my father's heart that I'm not He still holds out hope, believe it or not.
I think they all do.
He still holds out hope that I'll go back to church. He still holds out hope that I'm going to give him grandchildren. He still is holding on to that. Dad, you're staring at the grave. It's not going to happen. Just be happy with it. Okay, I'm sorry. I love you, but so yeah, just raised doing that, and raised to, and essentially picked to take over the farm.
You were picked.
Yeah, the family farm. I had an older brother who the whole family story is, I don't know if it's, you can edit this out or not. My mother had a child. She was married to another guy. He died, the husband. And so that's my older brother. Kevin is his name. And then my father, Jack, comes along, and here's this. For the time, it's mind blowing. It's every day now, but for the time, it was crazy. He comes along and marries this single mother. This single mother, this widower, and that's just unheard of. You just don't do that back then. So he comes along and marries her. They have trouble having children, so they adopt me and then my younger sister, Michelle, and. These are my parents, and they are and still are, even though my mother's dead, my biggest fans, biggest supporters.
Really?
Always. As much as, see, here's the thing. Kevin wanted to take over the farm, but he's allergic to everything. He's just one of those unfortunate sons of bitches that he couldn't haul the hay. He would puff up and everything. So I had to do it. And I didn't want anything to do with the farm. It gave me a good upbringing. Yeah. And I did all the hard work, and I know the value of a day's hard work and all that. But that just made me more and more not want to be a laborer.
And how old were you approximately at this time?
Oh, this is you start working on the farm when you're 4, 5.
When you're 4, yeah.
Yeah, you start working on it then, and it continues until you leave, and even after you leave, sometimes you're called in to hey, we're branding the cattle this weekend or whatever. So
you had cattle. What other animals did you have?
It was mostly cattle.
Okay.
We did have some pigs and some sheep, but it was mostly focused on the cows.
And did you milk them or just
no? It was beef cattle.
Beef cattle. Okay.
I had friends who were in dairy farms and all that, but we were beef cattle, and it was mostly just for our own
consumption,
use, our own use. Yeah. It was a smaller farm compared to some of the others that were down there.
Okay.
But I thank my parents for that upbringing, because it taught me the value of hard work.
Yeah.
So, growing up in that small town, you go to church on Sunday, everybody knows everybody. It was really kind of odd because, like I said, I didn't see things like other people did. Everyone was pretty happy to be growing up in a small town, and they were happy to stay there.
Yeah.
And most of them did.
And most of them are probably still there.
They are still there. As a matter of fact, it continues in my family. My nephews are more than happy to be living there, having dozens of kids.
See, and I had to get out of Utah County, man. That place is depressing.
Exactly.
It really is.
It wasn't that it was holding me back. It was that I wanted to see what was outside of that bowl, where the people I encounter now don't want to leave that bowl. And it really amazes me. Nothing wrong with it. If you're happy, hey, whatever gets you through the night, that's great. And like I said, my nephews, they're part of that. They're very happy living there and raising their kids there and working there. Terrific. More power to them. I just didn't have that. I wanted to see what was outside of the bowl.
Yeah. So you came to Salt Lake then, or how did that transition then for you to get to Salt Lake?
Well, so you go to high school, you go to Spanish Fork High School. Now Salem has their own high school. That's how much it's grown. But we used to be bussed in from Salem to Spanish Fork and go to high school there. Immediately, I was drawn to the theater department. There was a TV studies. Uh-huh. Immediately had to get into that. And anything to do with media. I was all over that stuff.
So like acting in school plays.
Yes, exactly.
And all that stuff.
And so I was immediately drawn to all of that. Mom and Dad sent me down one day. When they saw, because you fill out your form for all your classes that you want to take. And they sat me down one day and they said, Kerry, I'm very concerned. Well, what's the matter? He says, well, you've got all of this, the theater and the television production and writing classes and all that. We're very concerned that you're not taking classes that you'll be able to use to your benefit when you leave high school. Well, okay. And he says, listen, we'll let you take all these classes on this condition, that your mother can pick a class that she wants you to take, and I get to pick a class. I'm like, Dad, okay, whatever, fine. Dad picked welding. I want you to take this welding class.
And you were like, awesome.
And I'm like, oh, okay, fine. Okay, fine. That's the deal. Fine.
Yeah.
Mom, what class would you like me to take? Well, I think I'd like you to take seminary.
Oh, gosh.
And I said, I thought the point was is something that I would be using after high school. Well, you're going to need it. All right, fine.
Uh-huh.
So I took the welding and I took the seminary classes to make them happy. I'm still a good welder. Hey, I can draw a bead. I can do a bead. So if I have to fall back on that.
So welding could be your fallback career.
Not going to fall back so much on seminary, though. Seminary, for those who are listening that don't know, it's, and I still don't know how the state gets away with it.
It blows my mind how they get away with it.
Is LDS church-type classes, Sunday school classes, that the high school allows you to take time away from your other classes to go to.
Which is pretty much on campuses usually.
Yeah.
I mean, they're off of it enough.
They're off but on at the same time.
Yeah.
It's like somehow they're able to get land right next to that high school.
Yeah.
How are they able to do that? Are they just lucky every time?
Yeah.
I don't think so. But I think there's some sort of conspiracy there.
I love it.
So there's that. But I still don't know how you're allowed to leave the classroom. I don't have to ask Richie about this.
And it affects your grades,
and it
too.
does affect your grade.
Yeah, that's what blows me away is how it can affect your GPA and if you graduate high school and all of that.
So anyway.
So did you graduate seminary then?
I did not graduate, no.
No.
I took that semester or whatever it was that she asked me to take,
Uh-huh.
and that was it.
Wow.
Because I fulfilled my part of the bargain. And all I did was argue with the teachers, the seminary teachers, because they were doing the rock and roll is evil lessons.
Yeah.
And it was amazing how much they got wrong. Quoting lyrics and trying to plant ideas in our heads.
So they were telling you music was evil.
Music is evil.
Yeah, well, that was a big thing back at, what was it, probably 80s? 70s.
It would have been 80 or 79.
No, because I remember that growing up.
Yeah.
Oh, if you play it backwards, then they're trying to tell you a message and this and that.
That's the thing.
The double beats.
But he would tell you what it was.
Yeah.
He would say, if I play Queen, Another One Bites the Dust backwards, clearly you'll be able to hear it's fun to smoke marijuana. At which point my hand went up. And I said, yes, now that's what I'm going to hear.
But what's crazy about it is how much time did they take out of their day to figure this out?
Exactly.
Or I just don't think bands did that.
They didn't. Well, and Pink Floyd did it on purpose in the wall. That was another. Yeah. They put a secret message on there purposely. It said, congratulations, you have found the secret message. But if you play it, it's fun to smoke marijuana. I said, yes, that's all I'm going to hear now. Can you play one backwards for me that has a message? Don't tell me what it is. And let's see if we can hear it. Let's see if the whole class can hear it. And he wouldn't. He would not do that. Then he brought in, it was an album that I had. It was Black Sabbath, The Mob Rules.
Excellent album. And
it is one of my favorites. And he says, now the cover, for those who Google image it right now, it's this mob of people wearing robes and they're holding whips and they've got this torture like table stood up and there's a blood stain on the table. And he says, now look at the blood stain. This time he decided to do it right. Look at the blood stain. What do you see? And I just like, blood stain? Blood stain. It looks like a blood stain. Clearly you can see the devil's face in the blood stain right there.
Oh, gosh.
And I went, now I can. And now that's all I see. Before it was just a blood stain. Thank you for planting that in my head. Oh, God. I used to just... And they would send letters home, he's being disruptive. And I'm like, no, I'm not being disruptive. I'm asking questions and they don't have the answers. It was just crazy.
Well, you would think you were going to like a crazy, that just, because I don't think they teach that at seminary now.
I don't know.
With the music and all of that.
Ask.
That's wild.
But anyway, so we did that. And then right out of high school, and even before that, there was a small radio station in Spanish Fork. And at the time, the call letters were KONI. And it was country. Connie Country Radio, 1430 or whatever it was, 1480, can't remember. And it was purchased by the Neal family. Now, this guy was going to be my new friend. Rhett Neal was his name.
Okay.
And it was interesting because he came in from, where was it? Was it California? I think it was California. But he was Baptist. Oh.
Somebody in Salem that's a Baptist.
The Baptists.
Yeah.
They're Baptists. They've moved in. What is that? Is that like a Jehovah's Witness? What is that? We just know it's not Mormon, and that's all that matters. Well, I immediately was drawn to him because A, he was different from all the other kids that I had encountered. And B, we had this shared love of the Marx Brothers. And I couldn't talk Marx Brothers with any of my friends, But Rhett knew the Marx Brothers and was a huge fan. And so we were able to communicate on that level. Well, his dad bought the radio station. I thought, I've got an in.
Oh, absolutely.
Terrific. Way to go. So toward the end of high school, I say to Rhett and his father, I really want to be on the radio. I really want to do this. Now, you got to remember the time this was. This is 82. And they said, okay, sit down, Kerry. We got to talk. Sit down.
Got to have a man to man.
We got to have it. And his father said, look, here's the deal. You'll never make it on the radio. Well, why? Your voice is way too high. It's just too high for the radio.
Got to have that low voice. And
this was the time of the Boss Jock era. It was, hey, Jack Diamond, KCPX, the whole thing.
Yeah.
And he says, so we're not going to give you a job. Not going to do it. We can't. And you'll never make it. And you really should look to something else. Look to do something else. Broke my heart.
I could imagine. Crushed your soul, probably. I mean, that was what you wanted to do.
It was so. I was devastated for a week because this is what I wanted to do. And I'm like, if I don't do this,
you got to stay on the farm.
It means I got to stay on the farm. I got to live in the bowl. I don't want to do that, And then something that has served me well over the years, I let my anger take over. And I decided, fuck you. I'm going to show you a thing or two about doing radio, Neil family. And so that was my goal.
And you probably have shown.
I'm like, I'm going in to radio to get laid, to get out of the bowl, and to have a big middle finger to Rhett Neil's dad for telling me that I can't be on the radio because my voice is too high.
Yeah.
It became, that was the drive.
That's what kept you going. You wanted to show him.
That's what did it. So I did some scouting around, and I found out about a broadcast school here in Salt Lake. It doesn't exist anymore. Don't look for it.
I was already Googling it. Anyways. Sorry. So you found a broadcast
school.
I
found a broadcast school, and it was, to get into it was going to be $2,000. That's a lot of money now, but imagine that kind of money.
Back then.
And for a guy who, had a farm part-time who commuted from Salem to Tooele to work at the Army depot.
Wow.
That was hardship stuff. But he did it because, again, that's just what you do. Family. So I started at the broadcast school, which was important because I met a few people in the business. But 3 weeks in to the broadcast school, I hear that radio station, that the Neil family sold it. They sold it. Awesome. So I go out there one afternoon and just walked in the door. And there's this older guy with a mustache, curly hair. Steve Hope was his name. And I said, Steve, Mr. Hope, my name is Kerry. I live around here. I've always wanted to work here. I want the opportunity to learn how to do this. He was there by himself. He was not only just spinning records, because they had changed. That was the other thing. They changed the format. They went from country to a top 40 soft rock kind of thing.
Okay.
Changed the call letters to KHQN. Instead of Connie. And I found out that it was owned by a group in California. More on them later. And I said, Steve, I want to do this. And he said, all right, I need somebody to run the God shows on Sunday morning.
You're like, yay, my favorite.
I said, okay, sure, I can do that. He says, so you get here 5:30 in the morning. You sign on the transmitter, because it was a daytime or AM, 1,000 watt, which means they shut off at sundown. There's just no way to be competitive with that sort of a model. Thank you, FCC, for making business impossible. And so you'll sign it on, and you'll start the God shows at 6 a.m. There's like 5 hours of them. That last hour, I'll let you jock. I'll let you introduce records, but keep it very, very simple. Just introduce the record and give the call letter, time, temperature. That's it. Terrific. There's my break. Okay, so I quit the DJ school. There was no need to do it.
How long did you go to DJ school?
I went to DJ school for 3 weeks.
Oh, cool.
Because I decided, hey, I've got the job. I'm going to learn it, so I don't need to. So went in there every Sunday morning, and that was the most religion I've ever received in my entire life.
I could imagine.
And it was fascinating. You start off with music and the spoken word. Yes, the Mormon Tabernacle Choir here to sing. And it was like an hour-long show, and it was all on a real tape. So it was easy. I'd start that sucker up, and then I have a whole hour to kill. What do I do? Well, I learned how to, spin records and practiced.
And you were using real vinyl
skills.
then back
then.
Yeah.
It was 45 records.
Yeah.
So that was the God shows. And I went from that. I was there for a year and a half, and I started out just doing Sunday mornings. And by the time I left, I was afternoon drive and assistant PD and all of that. And I was fired because I wouldn't dress up as Santa Claus and go visit sick kids in the hospital.
You would make a great Santa Claus, though.
Fuck you. That was the thing, though, is that, I've always been a little on the pudgy side. But
I wasn't meaning it that way.
But Steve Hope was just like, I said to him, I said, you're asking me to do it because I'm the fat kid. Be honest, Steve. You don't think I'm going to be a good Santa Claus. You don't think he's an excellent actor. He could pull it off. That's not what you're doing. You're doing it because I'm the pudgy kid. Well, Steve, you're heftier than I am, and you've already got facial hair. Why don't you do it? I don't like your attitude. Get out of here.
I fired you right on the spot.
Right on the spot. That station, though, got my introduction to Hare Krishna.
Which is down in Spanish Fork.
Which is that station.
Oh, okay.
See, the Hare Krishnas bought it back then.
Really? Okay.
And they were going to start it off right away as a Hare Krishna radio station. But Steve Hope said, look,
nobody's going to listen to
Utah,
that down
what the
here.
fuck are you thinking?
Yeah,
let me try to make it go. And so Steve came from Provo Radio and tried to make it go. But then it was about 6 months after I was fired that it just kind of, and the Krishnas came in and took it over.
Wow.
And it is the weirdest thing. Folks, if you're ever in Spanish Fork, it's the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. The Hare Krishna temple that they have built there.
Yeah.
And that little shack down there at the bottom of it, not that nice cabin that they built, but that little shack next to the junkyard, that's the radio station. And that's
where you started.
That's where I started.
I'll have to go check it out.
But it's just beautiful you can see it from the freeway from I-15.
Do you make it down there much still or no?
Not as much as I used to.
Yeah. You still have family though down there?
Yeah. Dad's still there.
Yeah.
Dad and my brother and sister-in-law, my nephews, they all live in Salem, that area, Salem, Payson area. So yeah. Anyway, where were we?
So yeah, you were talking the radio and just kind of your progression in radio
okay,
land.
Yeah. From there, I went to Provo. For my brief affair with country radio for the longest time. Now, I was using a fake name for a long time. I took a character name from a horrible movie called 1941. John Belushi's character was Bill Kelso was his name.
So that was your radio name?
That was my radio name. And I was taught by radio people at that school, you really should pick a name. You should have a fake name because you can fake this personality. You can become that character,
Yeah.
Well, that's Bill Kelso. That's not me. So, and it frees you up and makes you more relaxed so that you can say things and do things that you wouldn't ordinarily do.
Do you think there's truth behind that?
I think there is truth to that.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of guys who are still play that character.
Yeah.
And they're different people when they come home. So I picked that name and just started doing all this stupid schlocky radio shtick that I despise now. I was doing that for the longest time. And so then I got the job at the country station in Provo, and this was all nights. This was midnight to 6 a.m. So this was the first opportunity that my dad had to hear me do my thing because he loved country music, and he got up at 3:30 in the morning to drive to Tooele to the Army depot. So he got to listen as long as he could until the signal went out. And he would carpool with a bunch of guys, and it was about 3 months into the all-night gig when he sat me down and he said, why are you using a fake name? And I tried to explain to him why it's important. I said, plus the anonymity. What if somebody's trying to find you? Then they can't find you because this person doesn't exist. They're not in the phone book or whatever.
Yeah.
And he just nodded his head. You could tell it just wasn't processing. And he looked at me and he says, "Are you ashamed of your name?"
Oh,
fuck.
That's how he saw it.
That's how he saw it. No matter the answer that I gave him, all legitimate answers. And especially these days with like security and things like that.
Yeah.
Identity theft wasn't a thing at the time, but boy, it was, you're ashamed of your name. That's all he was processing. You're ashamed of your name. And I said, Dad, I promise you, it would be stupid to change my name on this shift because
you've already built up the audience.
I'm doing it now.
Yeah.
But the next gig or the next shift or whatever, I will start using my real name. All right. That's good enough. And I knew it was a mistake. I just knew it was a mistake. But I promised him. And so I'm using my real name and still am. If I ever go to another market, like Seattle, hello. I'm looking for work, please. If I ever go to another market, I will change my name. I will have a fake name.
Really?
Yeah. Just simply for like security and identity theft. And
well,
like
with
that.
The internet nowadays, it's a lot probably easier to find people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But because I've been using my real name for so long in this market, it's how I'm known. So I have to use it, and it has caused problems.
What's the
Dad?
What's the craziest? I mean, you said it's caused problems. I mean, what kind of, if you care to share?
Well,
has like people showed up on your doorstep or what?
Had that.
Really?
Phone calls. It's easy to find where you live because everything's in your name.
Yeah.
That was while I was single. Once I got married, everything went in her name.
Yeah.
It's all in her name. So yeah, it has been an issue, and there are things that a character on the radio could say and do and get away with that I personally probably can't, because as a real person in the real world, I have to be held accountable. Where you could just say, "Oh, it was the guy on the radio. It's the character I play."
Well, you still have to probably be careful when you talk about other people on the radio.
Yeah.
Family members and stuff like that. And
That'll also, once Dad dies, I'm going to talk about all that stuff. All that stuff is going to come out. I'm going to tell you all about my crazy family, all of them.
It'll make a good radio show.
It's going to be a whole bunch of material opens up as soon as Dad is in the ground. It's just going to go.
Has he ever threatened, don't talk about me, don't talk about the family,
no.
or is it just out of respect?
It's out of respect for him.
Yeah.
It's because I know that it would come back to him. It would be my family members going, "Did you hear that shit?
Yeah.
You hear what your son is saying?" And then he has to.
Do you think they listen to you?
Some do.
Yeah.
Some do. Not so many, but some do.
Because, I mean, you get down there, right? The radio from X96 gets down to Utah. Well, I know it goes Utah County, but I don't know how far south.
Well, our city of license is Provo.
Okay.
Yeah, so they...
That's right, because X96 used to be in Provo, right?
Yeah,
Didn't it, back in the day?
Well, it was K96 FM.
Yeah, 96.1.
96.1.
Oh, yeah.
And it was down in Provo. We used to drive to Provo to do the show. And then with a little bit of engineering and making nice with the FCC and just change it from 0.1 to 0.3. You get a better signal. You still have to cater to Provo license-wise. Boy, the FCC deregulated. And Clinton and Reagan and all those guys deregulated things with the FCC so much that a city of license it used to be, it's the public's airwaves.
Yeah.
Still technically is. It's a weird window that we're in these days where we have to do nice things for our city of license. Talk about their public service and stuff like that. All has to be catered toward the city of Provo, and we still have to do that legally. But boy, it's just so little.
Yeah.
It's so little. It used to be you have to do a lot of stuff for your city of license just to keep your license with the FCC, but it's now just bare minimum. That's all you have to do. And we're not the only ones. Stations across the nation do it that way. They have a city of license somewhere, but they broadcast to the major city, whatever it is.
Yeah, because I remember when I first moved to Provo, again, this was 20 years ago, and I found X96, and I was like, man, this is awesome. I mean, these guys play awesome music. I mean, I remember, what was it, Bessie the Milk Beast?
Oh, yeah.
And, you guys would come out and give out the free milk and come out for the midnight CD show or releases. And,
our mascot was a cow.
Yeah, it was like
a milk cow.
Was it like an armored car or something like that?
It was just one of those big, we didn't want to do a traditional station van.
Yeah.
We always wanted to do something different. And that was always the approach is, how is it being done on the radio currently? Okay. Let's not do it that way. So we'd have the big old armored car, and instead of, at that time, they were passing out like sodas and things like that. We're like, well, let's do milk then. Screw it. Every day was opposite day. And it still is to a certain extent how we approach things. I can't speak for the entire radio station these days. I can only speak for the morning show. But our approach is always opposite day. How do other people do it? Okay, well, let's do it another way.
Who did those, what was it, the Dingo Boy skits? Remember those skits back in the day?
Oh, those were Adam Carolla.
Oh, those were Adam Carolla?
Yeah, those were Adam Carolla.
Okay.
And they would send them to me and say, here, run them.
Yeah. No, I remember those. I remember those little.
I won't take credit for them.
Yeah.
But if you'd like to give me credit, I'm more than happy to take it.
Okay.
But they would send them to us and say, go ahead and run them.
So how long has Radio from Hell been around then? Let's jump up a little bit to that. When did you guys team up? The three of you guys.
Well, that was probably even before your time. That was probably KJQ.
Yeah.
Was when that happened. Bill and I were thrown together. I was working in a station up in Logan doing middays, a rock station, and I loved that gig because there was an hour-long period in the daytime where it was an oldies show, and I got to play whatever I wanted pretty much. It was supposed to be requests, but I wound up playing most of the stuff I really loved, to which point the PD called me in after the third show and said, could you play some white people music, please? It's a lot of white people up here.
What would you play? What were some of your
I was playing
favorite?
a lot of blues stuff. I was playing a lot of that classic soul stuff.
Okay.
That I just love all that stuff. So I was throwing a lot of that. And he said, could you throw in some Beach Boys? Could you, please? For the white people, But anyway, that was a great gig. But then I remembered I sent a tape to this little station in Ogden, which was KJQ, and it was top 40 at the time. And I got a call from the guy, and he says, I'd like to talk to you about doing mornings. It was Tom Greenlee was his name. And I went, mornings? Oh, I'm not cut out for mornings. Well, I think you are. See, mornings is the standard. It's the top of the totem pole.
That's when you've made it.
It's where all of the really talented radio people go. And when he said mornings, I went, I'm just a jock. I'm just here to meet girls. That's all I'm doing. He said, no, I want to talk to you about mornings. So he came in and we talked about it, and he offered me a decent, at the time, amount of money. And it was top 40, and it was he says, you'll be doing mornings with the PD. Paul Wilson is his name. And I recognized Paul's voice from rock station I used to listen to growing up, KCPX FM 99 FM. 99 FM. And so it was kind of an honor to be working with Paul. And so we started doing this awful top 40 type morning show, playing records and doing funny phone calls and all that stupid shit. And then one day Tom came in and said, listen, this guy Bill Allred, he used to work here. You replaced him. He went off to work in television as a promotions director at a television station. And I said, okay, yeah. He says, well, it's not working out for him. The TV's not working out for him. It's a terrible place to work, and he would really like to come back. How would you feel about working with him? I said, well, never met him. I don't know. So, okay, well, he'll be coming in this weekend to do some voice work for me. Why don't you talk to him and see how it goes? Just meet him. And so I was doing my top 40 countdown show that I did on Saturday, which was a lot of fun. But anyway, I'm jocking on the air, and he comes in and he starts talking to me, and I'm trying to focus on the show and trying to talk to him. And it was funny because after about 10 minutes of talking to him, I really hated him. But this guy is a dick. He's really full of himself. I don't like this guy. So then Monday,
Bill,
yeah,
you didn't, okay,
yeah, Monday, Tom says, "Well, what did you think of my?" I don't like him. I don't like him at all. He can be a little abrasive. He can be a little difficult to get. I said, a little. I mean, the guy just doesn't even have a modicum of.
But that's Bill for you, though.
Now, well. Why is it that people excuse stuff like that?
I don't know.
I used to work with a guy. Oh, that's just the way he is. No, he was a dick. I'm not talking about Bill. I'm talking about somebody else right now. That's just Mike for you, they would say. That's just Mike. No, he's a dick. You can't just excuse that kind of behavior. You just can't. Anyway, sorry. So I told Tom, I don't like the guy. I don't like him. It's okay. Sorry to hear that. Okay, all right. I'll let him know. Things went along. 2 weeks later, Tom said, you're working with him. I'm sorry. You just have no choice. I want him back, and that's all there is to it. You're going to work with him, so you better figure it out. All right, fine. So he came in. We started working together. We clashed quite a lot. We're doing this top 40 thing, and it was just okay.
Yeah.
But we did start to gel. There was a chemistry. About that same time, the station that I really listened to was KCGL, and then it was KRP. It was a group of these guys who were playing what was called New Wave at the time. Flock of Seagulls, The Fix.
The good stuff.
Depeche Mode, Oingo Boingo, all that. But that's the stuff I was listening to.
Okay.
But I was playing Gloria Estefan. And they approached Tom and said, look, we'd like to do a thing. And Tom says, well, there's no way I'm playing that green hair music 24 hours a day. There's just no way. But tell you what, at 6 p.m., I will leash you the radio station. So at 6 p.m., you can come in and play whatever you want until 6 a.m. You pay me a monthly fee, we'll do it.
So you're like, awesome.
And Tom was like, this is brilliant for me because they're paying me to work at my radio station. So this group paid Tom to do that because they were getting kicked out of their current place. And then we began to notice the ratings that after 6 p.m.,
ratings just skyrocketed.
Ratings were, through the roof. And then during the day, nothing. Nobody wanted to hear Gloria Estefan. Go figure. So after a couple of months, Tom went, I got to be playing this green hair music 24 hours a day. I really do.
It's what the people wanted.
Yeah. He says it's just the smart thing to do. So he sat down with just Bill and I, and he said, this is what I want to do. And I thought for sure it'd be like, well, that's it. We're getting fired. We're getting fired. He says, no, but don't tell anyone, please. But I want you two to do mornings. So you need to start familiarizing yourself with this music. And I'm like, I already listened to it. I'm in. I'm there. I said, but I think you're going to have a hard time convincing the guys who do it that we're okay to do it because in their eyes, we're just top 40 DJs.
Yeah.
All right. It'll be tough. So he sat them down and he says, I want to do this 24 hours a day. They went, yes. He says, caveat, I will get rid of everyone.
Wow.
Except for Bill and Kerry. They got to stay. No way. Deal breaker. No way. And he goes, that's my final offer. So they thought about it for 2 days and they went, okay, fine. Our audience will hate them. Our audience will hate them and they will go away. They'll quit or something. You'll see. It's not going to work. You'll see. The audience will reject them. You'll see. So those were the conditions that I started working in this new format in kind of a hostile environment. And it was a tough first week.
I could imagine.
It was a tough first week. You make the mistake of mispronouncing something. You should know that, man.
Yeah.
You make mistakes. After about a month, they accepted us, though.
But you had that constant pressure
of,
oh my gosh, am I going to lose my job? Am I going to do the wrong thing?
Terrified.
Yeah.
Terrified. And so eventually the staff came around to liking us, but boy, the PD never did. PD never. And to all those years of working with, he never liked us. Never.
Wow.
It was just begrudgingly that he had that goddamn morning show that was successful. If it was up to him, it would have been a jukebox 24 hours a day. Wouldn't have done anything fun.
Wow.
Nothing fun in the mornings. But we realized to be competitive in the radio market,
you got to do something more than music.
You've got to do something more than just play music.
Yeah.
Because you're not just competing, to try to get people who like Depeche Mode. In order to be successful, you've got to do more than that. You've got to not just get that music fan, but you've got to get people who might not be music fans. You got to bring them in.
Well, plus you want to keep them on your station. You don't want to, when the song changes, them to go to a different station. So they want to get to know the personalities, the people on the radio, and say, oh, well, I got to, listen to what they got to say.
And that's the way that Bill and I approached it, is that we're not just competing with ourselves or the afternoon guy. We're competing with all radio. And then we thought about it even bigger down the road. We're not just competing with radio. We're competing with everything. Everything that happens between 6 and 10 a.m., I'm competing with you. Newspaper. I don't care what it is. And now internet. And that's always been our attitude. We're competing with everything that can distract you between 6 and 10 a.m. So that when people ask, who's your competition? That's my answer. Everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone and everything. I don't care what it is. It's your kid I'm in competition with.
The kid screaming in the back of the car.
6 and 10 a.m. Exactly. So
when did Gina come on board then? How did that happen?
So KJQ went along for 4 or 5 years, I think. I can't remember. And then the corporate greed, because the station began to succeed.
So did it go by Radio from Hell with just you and...
We were Radio from Hell at that time. And that was a name that we ripped off from an old Richard Lewis comedy routine. His slug line back then in his routines was blank from hell. Everything was from hell. Girlfriend from hell. Richard Lewis, very funny man. Look him up. So we just stole that. the station began to be successful. The corporate greed started to take hold, infighting with the owners and the managers and all that. And then suddenly one of the investors in California sold his off to his stake, his majority stake of it, to another company. And hence the arrival of what we laughingly refer to as the asshole from El Paso. Guy came in who was going to show us how to do radio. Take a look at our numbers. I think we know how to do radio. No, you boys, you don't know what you're doing. At that point, everybody got together and said, look, we're walking. We're all just going to walk because this guy's going to ruin it. He's going to ruin everything. At that time, I had been diagnosed with testicular cancer.
Jeez.
I couldn't just up and walk out of a job. I needed the insurance.
Yeah.
As shitty as it was, I needed the insurance. So everybody left. And I'm like, I can't. I really can't. Come on, quit. You can go on the dole. Cancer!
I need the insurance.
I need the insurance.
Yeah.
Fine. Fuck you then. All right. So they all left, and I was forced to stay and do the corporate version of KJQ, which was awful.
And Bill stayed with you?
No.
Oh, he left.
No, Bill left.
Wow.
So I had to do mornings with a couple of other different people. In the meantime, X96 is being rumbled about. They're building it. They found a signal. They got an investor. The whole thing. And I was stuck. I was stuck with a contract and a no-compete and my left nut missing, and there was just no place to go. So then X96 starts up. And it just destroyed us. Of course it did. The station closes down. Well, it changed format. It went to the Killer Bee, it became, and it was top 40, and they fired me because I was...
You didn't like the top 40?
Well, no, I was difficult to work with. So they fired me. It's because I kept telling them, you're doing it wrong. You never tell your boss that he's doing it wrong. I always did. That's why I was always fired. So I was unemployed for the longest time and, spent most of my, right at that time, cancer, losing the job, love of your life girlfriend leaves you. All of it happened in
just
like
basically shit hit the fan. I mean, your life, yeah.
I would spend days on the kitchen floor in the fetal position, just, not leaving the house. I just couldn't do it. And then my unemployment runs out. And they said, look, we'll give you an extension of a few more months, but you've got to come down and take this class on how to apply for a job.
Yeah.
Like, I know how to fucking apply for
a class on how to apply for a job.
But it was one of those things where it's like, let's refresh your resumes. Let's do this. And so I'm sitting in the class, just bummed. And I'm like, I'm only doing this for the money. And I look at the door, and there's Sue Kelly, who at the time was working for a group of stations that included 94.9 and K-Bear and a sports talk station. And Sue gestures, come here. And I get up to start to leave, and the person running the class said, where do you think you're going? And Sue Kelly goes, he doesn't need this class. He's got a job.
Wow.
I went, really? And that's how Sue announced to me that I'd be doing mornings on 94.9. And I'm like, oh, great. I'm back on the radio. I'm doing mornings. Oh, I'm competing against my former partner. Okay, fine. Well, really, I'm not competing. I kept telling myself, really, I'm not competing with him because I'm playing. I mean, we were the first station in Salt Lake to be playing like Dr. Dre and Snoop and all that stuff. So it was a combination dance and hip hop kind of thing.
Which was a big deal back then.
Yeah.
To be playing that stuff.
I was so happy to be one of the first people to play, cuts from the Chronic in Salt Lake City, at the time. And it was a pretty good gig. I actually enjoyed it. And the thing I needed to prove to myself was, because I kept getting told by outside voices, well, you're nothing without your partner. I had to prove to myself that I could do the whole show.
Yeah, you had to make your own identity.
I want to do everything. Yeah. They kept saying, do you want a news person? No. Do you want a producer? No. I want to do it all myself. I was alone, wasn't dating anyone. I focused completely on that. I started to write and produce sketches, formatted the show, did the whole thing, and the ratings went up. And I went, yes. See, I can do it. I know what I'm doing. I wasn't riding anybody's fucking coattails. I know what I'm doing, and I'm doing it. Things were starting to go well. I had a period of time there at 94.9 where, like I said, love of my life just left me. Suddenly, there was this new opportunity. Hence why I got into radio in the first place. I did it to get laid. There was a club in town, the Vortex.
Oh, I remember. Yeah.
And what they would do is they would patch in to the radio station the board at the club. So the DJ, you would hear the music that was being played at the club on the station. It's a brilliant idea, and still a brilliant idea. And why someone isn't doing it today, I don't know. Here in Salt Lake, I'm sure they do it somewhere else. And they say, Kerry, we want you to go down there, and you'll have a cordless microphone, and it's plugged into the board, and you just go around and interview people. It's after 10 p.m., so the FCC's kind of lax on stuff. Go around and interview people. Just say hi, and you're hosting a party on the radio that's actually a party.
Yeah.
So I did that for a good 6 to 8 months and never went home with the same girl.
I could imagine.
Every weekend. It was as I used to say, I drowned my sorrows in pussy. But
I'll have to get into that.
And that was a good time. That was a really good gig. Getting up, doing that, very satisfying. Lost weight, did the whole thing, got myself clean, all of that. And then I hear that Bill's partner, Dom, who he's been doing morning show with.
Was it Dom Casual?
Dom Casual.
Yeah, I remember him, yeah.
Has decided to leave. Where is he going? Is he going to another gig? No, he's quitting radio. He wants to go find himself.
Oh, gosh.
Well. So I called Jim Facer, the man who created X96. I said, Jim, it just makes sense. It just makes sense because people still talk about Bill and I together.
Yeah.
It just makes sense that I come over. He goes, yes, Kerry, you know that and I know that. But the staff hates you. Why? Well, they're mad because you didn't leave. Cancer! So that they're holding that against you, but also you were kind of a dick.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, yeah. I've been through a lot though, Jim. I think I've changed.
Here's a list of everything I've had to go through.
And I did. I told him the story. And he goes, yeah, I can see you change, man. I can see that. Well, we are interviewing people for the position, so I'll put you in that rotation.
You had to get interviewed.
We're interviewing people in the building and outside of the building, so I'll put you in that rotation, but I will let it be known that I think you're the best choice. Now, ultimately, Bill will decide.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. So we went through the whole thing, went through the whole process, and Bill said, yes, it makes sense. Let's do it. So we came back. Thus began the Kerry Jackson apology tour.
I'm sorry.
For the longest time. But then we kept going. There was a guy there at the time who felt that he should have got the job with Bill. Mm-hmm. It should have been him. And that guy became our producer. I said, he's good. Let's make him be the producer then. Since I'm going to take the show, I don't want him mad at me. Let's give him, throw him a bone. We could use a producer. Sure, great. He left and went somewhere. We went through another producer. At the time, Gina, who had worked previously at KJQ just on weekends and stuff like that, I always liked her. We found out that she's over at Q99, the alleged competitor for X96. I heard that it was a sinking ship. And once we were looking for a producer, I thought, let's get Gina. Let's do that.
And have you worked with her previously to that?
Just knew of her.
Just knew of her.
Talked with her.
Yeah.
She was working at that sports station that was down the hall from me at 94.9. Yeah. Just knew that she was very funny.
Yeah.
And very capable. So that's the perfect choice. Through a little finagling and threats and legalities, we were able to save her from that sinking ship and bring her over, and the rest is history. So she's been with us for about, Richie's better at this, 14 years.
Well, because you guys just work so well together. I mean, and that's what's so, to not go through, you didn't have like other people. It sounds like it's always been the three of you.
Yeah.
The fact that you guys work so well together.
Well, it's easy, with Gina especially.
Yeah.
She's just naturally can walk into any situation and have chemistry.
Yeah.
She's just that good. A lot of people think that she's dumb. She's an excellent actress. I'll say that.
Yeah. She's
got you all convinced that she's dumb. When a lot of times she's the smartest one in the room.
Really?
Even, and I'm saying that with Bill and I in the room. Oftentimes she's the smartest one in the room. She's got the right idea and she has the correct choice. She has to convince us. And then once we do, we go like, oh, of course, that is the smart choice. Of course.
Yeah.
But no, she's a lot of people don't give her enough credit.
Well, you guys seem to have a lot of fun together. I mean, you guys definitely make it, what do you think makes it like some groups of people just not work well together? Like versus you guys work so well together, you get some groups that just don't.
A lot of times it's hard to say it's just one thing. It's so many things. There are a lot of times when a show is created by corporate focus group. There's an equation that comes down from the corporate mentality. Well, we need a girl in there, of course. We'll have two guys because, well, women can't do radio. This is corporate thought. We don't like women on the radio, but we need a woman on the radio. Well, she can't be in charge. Let's have two guys. We'll have one guy. He'll be the straight ahead guy, the family guy, the voice of authority, the smart one. Then we'll have the other guy. He'll be the crazy guy. He'll be the party guy. Sound like a morning show you hear in town here? He'll be the party guy. He'll be the wacky guy. And then we'll have the girl, and she'll be, oh, you guys, that's her role. You guys stop it. Oh, now you just stop it, you two. And that's her job. And that's a corporate morning show. I can name you 3 of them here in town that are exactly that. And that's how they were created. And that's what they are.
But they get a little boring to listen to.
And they can't. And it's because none of it is real.
Yeah.
They're giving you what they think you want to hear.
Yeah.
Where our attitude has always been opposite day. We're going to do a show that amuses us, and if y'all want to listen in, that's fun. That's fine.
Yeah, you're welcome to join us.
You're welcome to join us.
If you want to.
That's great. So we were just a show that played a lot of records and talked a little bit for the longest time. Kerry built Gina model. It's because we had a PD who hated the morning show.
Yeah.
Well, luckily he didn't listen. You're still getting 8 songs an hour in, aren't you? Oh, sure, as far as you know.
Nod your head.
We're getting 4 in, maybe.
Yeah.
But he didn't listen because he hated the show. Awesome. Well, then 9/11 happened, and we stopped playing records because this was a big deal. I mean, we're talking about it. We're putting people on the phone, and we began to notice that, a lot of people were gathering around the studio. And, because we had a TV on up in the studio, but they were looking at the TV but listening to us, and we were, the whole thing, because it brought everyone together. At 10 a.m., that same PD who hated the morning show said, all right, fine, let's start playing records. Really?
What? This is going on. Yeah.
I mean, the nation's under attack.
Yeah.
It's in New York. It's no big deal. It doesn't affect us here.
Which how most people in Utah think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that was when I went, oh, that's it. You're crazy. Next day, we didn't play any music. And from that day forward, we haven't played music on the radio. Because what we were talking about brought more people to the table than any sketch that I could write and produce.
Yeah.
Than any game that we played. Brought more people to the table. Hearing Gina talking about her dog or something like that was more interesting than any. I used to write and produce these sketches, and they would take me hours because I was such a
perfectionist.
Yes, a perfectionist. I had to have the right sound effect, and it had to come in at the right time. And I'm dealing with very limited technical ability there because it's tape, and you only had 4 channels to work with, and you had to, it had to be. But in my mind, it had to be just right, and I would slave and sweat over these sketches hours at a time, and then you play them, and people go, "Yeah, that was funny. That was really funny." Gina talking about her dog. I began to notice
you're like, I just spent all this time on this sketch and you just care about her fucking dog.
Exactly. And and that's when I realized that's what the show is.
Yeah.
It's not about this wacky radio shit. Just go in there and talk.
Do you miss playing music though at all?
When I need to go to the bathroom. That's
No, I can respect that.
I don't miss playing music.
Yeah.
I don't.
You're like, I listen to enough of it at home.
Yeah, I do. And again, I can't listen to the radio station or any radio in town because it's work. So I rely a lot on podcasts.
Which let's jump into where I want to bring up Geek Show podcast here.
Geek Show was something that we did on the radio about 4 times a year.
Yeah.
That's when it was geek culture, and it was underground.
When you'd get beat up.
Yes. Not so much anymore. It's mainstream culture. I mean,
walk
seriously.
into Hot Topic and it's like, hello.
Exactly. So we do it like 4 times a year on the air with that same group of guys. And then I began to see that geek culture was no longer geek, it was mainstream, and we needed to do it more, but I was afraid to do it on the radio as much.
Yeah.
And that's when podcasts came around.
So Geek Show, how long? You guys just celebrated your 5th anniversary, though, of the podcast, but you were doing it. I heard like 50,
on the air, we've been doing it for about 15 years.
Yeah. With Vice and all those guys, everybody.
Yeah, the essentially the same panel. Shannon and Vice have been the two, and Cade.
Yeah.
Although Cade moved away and then came back, but it started out with him. And we did it on the air. We would be celebrating our 6th anniversary podcast if Simmons hadn't pulled their head out sooner. Because I realized that podcast is the way to do it once a week and just serve that audience that wanted it. I wasn't confident in being mainstream enough to attract people, to make them listen. So I went, this is clearly the way to do this kind of thing. Podcast is the way to go. And it was myself and one of the IT guys who really lobbied Simmons. We've got to do this. What's a podcast? What time is it on? They had no idea.
Well, I can imagine. I mean, people still don't know what the fuck a podcast is. And I mean, I could imagine 5-6 years ago.
I got people I work with who go, when's your podcast on?
Yeah.
It's
on at 10 a.m.
So we tried and we tried and we tried. And we lobbied and realized it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So we just decided, well, what they don't know won't hurt them.
Yeah.
And we just did it.
You did it and the rest is history.
We did it. And then we told them, oh, by the way, you have a podcast.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we're hearing about podcasts. We have one? Oh, okay.
So you guys, you record, well, I know you get together, you record, you have an episode that comes out every Monday.
Every
right?
Monday.
Yeah. I mean, how you guys work so well together? I mean, I was actually just talking to Jimmy about this on the episode that will be up before this. You guys are just like friends hanging out.
Well, that's how it started.
Yeah.
That's how it really started, was we would be in Lee George Cade's living room with a role-playing game that he has invented. And that's and it's all right, sit down. We're going to play this game, and that's how
that's Lee for you though, right?
That's how it started. It was just the bunch of us sitting around and bullshitting and making fun of everything that we loved,
And you found people wanted to listen to that, and you're like, let's go with this.
And that's what we did.
Yeah.
And the philosophy is that we can make fun of Luke Skywalker for being a whiny little bitch and want to be him at the same time. Don't hold it so sacred that you can't make fun of it. And we do. We love all this stuff, but we'll also make fun of it because we know that it's very important to us, but at the same time, you gotta laugh at it sometime. You can't take it so serious. I feel so sorry for geeks. And that's where Geek Show was cutting edge for what it did, was that we were not, Star Trek and Star Wars and all that stuff. It was not holy scripture. It had holes in it. We love it to death, but there's a Star Trek episode where there's a giant cat,
Yeah.
You can't look at that and say it's sacred text. It's a giant cat. It's a lady that turns into a cat. You can't not make fun of it. But at the same time, you can love the fact that a lady turns into a cat. And that's where Geek Show is different from all the other geek-centric podcasts that there are. I've listened to a couple of them, and they're so, oh God, it's like, don't speak ill of Doctor Who. What? Don't you dare speak ill of whatever it is. Oh, come on, we can make fun of it and love it at the same time. And that's where Geek Show is different, is that we will make fun of stuff, but at the same time profess our love and how it changed our lives and how it has great meaning for us.
Yeah.
I always say, y'all may read the Bible, but, Star Trek is my moral compass. To me, it has more meaning than any holy scripture. I've learned more from Captain America than I ever have from name your deity,
Yeah.
I've gotten more out of that than any other holy writ.
Do you think podcasts will ever become more mainstream than they are? Like, kind of back to what I was saying, like, oh, what's a podcast? I mean, you've even seen the geek culture come out of where it's shell.
Here's the thing. I think it is mainstream.
Podcasts or
I think it's more.
You think people listen?
I think more people listen to podcasts than
we might know.
Than we're getting credit for.
Yeah.
Let me just say that. Because corporate America is still the old white guys who are holding on to the old ways. Trust me, I work for them. They don't see because they don't use it. Mm-hmm. Because they're not using it. They don't understand this new frontier because they don't bother to.
Yeah.
They don't realize it's coming. It's staring at you. I use the comparison. I say, yeah, it used to be that all radio guys laughed at FM.
It was just AM.
You needed to be on the AM because that signal went everywhere. And everybody laughed at AM. Oh, it's so limited. It's line of sight. What are you talking about? It'll never make it. I say the same thing to radio guys. You've got to stop thinking about it as that transmitter. It's entertainment.
Yeah.
And there are many ways to get it. And you need to start
get it
thinking
online,
about
get it on
that
your
way.
iPhone,
Yes.
your smartphone, whatever.
Unfortunately, the rating systems that we use for radio, that we have to use because there's only one, it's definitely a monopoly, doesn't count streaming, doesn't count the phone that I listen to the radio on, the website, doesn't count things like podcasts.
Not even iTunes downloads, though?
Not even iTunes downloads.
Really?
They have a device that knows what radio station you're exposed to.
Wow.
How can you possibly succeed, go forward with that kind of model? And you're held hostage by this ratings company. You're held hostage by them because they're not willing to change up yet because we're still making money doing this.
Yeah.
We'll change down the road. You don't understand. It's happening faster than that. You need to serve these companies that you rate or they're going to be gone because you're killing them. Until you can figure out a way to factor in streaming, downloads, all of that other ways of hearing my show on the radio, you're killing us. Because if you're relying people just to listen, I don't know anybody who has a clock radio anymore.
Yeah, you
don't use one?
No.
You've got your phone.
I got my iPhone to wake me up in the morning.
It's got your alarm right there. Well, when that goes off, it's not me on the radio. It's a buzzer.
People used to wake up to the radio.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But now this little device that this ratings company has that hears what you're hearing, I don't start to get ratings till 7:30. That's a ratings company killing my industry.
Wow.
But that industry relies on the ratings company, and that ratings company relies on the industry. And everyone seems to be okay with it. This ratings company is going to kill the industry that it serves.
And they don't even realize what they're doing.
I think that they don't think it'll go away.
Yeah.
Because they're old white guys. Oh, everybody uses the radio. There's your problem. Everybody looks for entertainment.
But not everybody uses. I can't remember,
And there are lots of available entertainments out there. And you've got to be one of them. You can't just rely on that stick. You can't rely on that transmitter. You've got to be an entertainment provider.
Like a podcast.
And radio is one way to do it. Podcast, stream. There are many ways to get our entertainment that we're presenting to you.
Well, even back to Radio from Hell. I mean, you can download it from iTunes, so you can listen to it at your convenience.
And I love everybody who does that, but it doesn't do me any good.
Oh, okay. See, so I'll change my ways.
It's like I tell everybody, I said, I don't care if you just leave the radio on.
Yeah.
Just turn it on between 6 and 10. After 10, I don't care. 6 and 10, just have it on. That's all I ask.
Yeah. Well, just to kind of wrap things up, Kerry, I appreciate you coming. I mean, I could.
Are we done?
No, we're not done yet.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I'm not kicking you out of my place yet. Fine. I know you're a busy guy.
Well, this is the I Am Salt Lake podcast.
Yeah. So, what do you like about Salt Lake? I mean,
love living here.
I mean, I know. I mean, what do you like about it, though? Come on, share what you like and what you don't like.
There's not a lot I don't like. I really don't have a lot.
Even the liquor laws. That's the first thing everybody says. Oh, the liquor laws fucking suck.
Well, it is kind of silly. A couple of things are it's just kind of odd. The little nitpicky things that are my big problem with the liquor laws is that the government will sit and rail about how, gosh, we're just, we've got to close a liquor store because it's not making money. And then they talk about getting big government out of businesses back, and we need smaller government. We need smaller government, but we're running liquor stores in the state
that are actually making money.
But
they're shutting them down.
Yeah, because they see a profit.
Yeah.
They want to make more profit. And if we close a location, we'll still those booze hounds will buy the booze anyway. We'll just make them drive at extra space, to get it. And they're always talking about smaller government. Okay, you want small government? Shut down the DABC and let me buy my booze at Smith's, please.
Do you think that'll ever happen?
No, not in my lifetime.
Yeah.
Maybe in yours. But
Hey, come on.
Not in my lifetime. I don't see that happening.
See, and I don't think at the end of the day, you go to a liquor store, you buy your, make sure to get your liquor on Saturday because you can't get it on Sunday.
Yeah.
You still get drunk.
Oh, yeah. You can get just as drunk here as you can anywhere else. But it's just the hypocrisy of the politicians is the thing that I guess that's what I hate about Utah. Is the hypocrisy of the politicians. There's a one-party rule up on the hill, and everyone is afraid to vote Democrat because their God will send them to hell.
It's changing, though, man. It really is. I mean, I look at the last 20 years that I've been around this area, and I mean, even the last 10 years that I've lived in Salt Lake, I mean, this city has changed a lot.
We need some progressive-minded people to come in and take over from these old white men who are in charge, not just in politics, but in radio and corporate business.
And it's happening.
We need some young ideas and some fresh ideas, some young minds with no prejudices or hypocrisy. Well, there'll always be hypocrisy, I guess, but... You
got any favorite local eatery places? I mean, we all like to go out to eat, What are some of your favorite places to go grab a bite?
Well, first of all, if you're coming to Salt Lake, go to Bert's Tiki Lounge first thing.
Great bar.
It's always on the top 10 dive bars in the nation. Yeah. It's not as scary as it looks. All right. They're good people in there. All right. So go to Bert's. But my favorite place to eat, and I've been eating there for I think 20 years now, is this little taqueria down on 72nd South called Lone Star.
Okay. Yeah.
It's the one with the broken down car out in front of it.
Yeah.
The fish taco is, and I've had fish taco across the West, and it is a West thing. It's California
But they're good.
Honestly, their fish taco, best fish taco I've had. And I'm lucky enough to have them just 2 miles away from my house.
So you're eating that up a lot?
I love that place.
Yeah.
You get a fish taco or a Maria's plate from them. Delicious. Just the best stuff. And they've been there for a very long time. I love that place.
Any other places? Or?
Well, let's see. I'm partial to a place called Lugano. It's an Italian place. I like that. That's always good. The lamb is always good there. For sushi, downtown Takashi.
Great sushi.
Hands down the best.
Yeah.
There are a lot of, it's weird how many sushi places we have in Salt Lake City.
It is pretty crazy.
It's like Starbucks here, folks. There's a sushi place everywhere, but they are the best. And just absolutely the best ingredients and the best preparation and just amazing. So that's where I would go for sushi. I got this kind of social anxiety disorder, so I don't go out as much as I used to.
It happens when we get older,
And, I keep getting stared at and
people come up to you and want to get their picture with you.
Well, I don't mind that. I really don't. But it's the stalking part before that makes me nervous.
The guy in the bushes hiding.
It's the guy, who's making sure it's me. That's the part that makes me nervous. Just come up and say hi.
They wait till they hear your voice.
Exactly. Just come up and say hi. Don't do the stalkery followy thing. That makes me nervous as hell.
So you like it when people come up to you and say hello?
I don't mind it at all.
Okay.
Absolutely. It's the before that. It's it's like a shark circling.
Yeah.
That's when I get a little anxiety. That's when it makes me nervous. Just come up and say hi. I'm not as bad as everyone said.
Another thing I wanted to mention or to talk about really quick, the Radio from Hell Squatters beer. How did that come about?
Well, get it now.
Is it about to be discontinued?
Get it now. It's about to change.
Okay.
Because we couldn't come to terms with.
Okay.
It was interesting. We'd heard about a morning show up in Seattle who had their own beer, and all they did was they went to a brewery and said, "Put our label on this beer, their standard beer."
Well, it's a great beer.
And they said it's a great idea. So, okay, terrific. And they sold beer. And the deal was that morning show would also get a little taste of the gig, a little bit, because it's their name.
Yeah.
So we just said to Squatters offhandedly one day, "This is, we heard about this. Why don't we do it?" He says, "Well, let's do that, but let's not just throw a label on an existing beer.
Let's make a new one.
Let's make a new one. We've been working on this red ale that we're really, proud of, and we're still working on it. Let's make a special beer. Let's make an actual new beer, and we'll call it that." We said, "Terrific." And he said, "Now look, first year we're taking all the financial risk. So first year we need to make our money back. After that, we'll talk about letting you have a taste, a little bit of the money." And well, it's been a year and we haven't been able to come to terms. So they'll continue selling the beer, but the label will change.
It's tasty.
It's a good beer.
Yeah.
It is. And I would say continue to buy it, but I would also say go buy, if you're a fan, go buy the bottle now because it is a collector's item.
There you go.
But that was just always, we've known Squatters from the beginning. It was funny because, here we are, this upstart green-haired KJQ, and the first brew pub in downtown Salt Lake called us and said, "We want to do ads with you guys." And so we've known them since the day they opened their doors. Jeff Polychronis and Peter Cole and Bill and I, we've known them from the day they opened their doors. So I wouldn't want to do business
with anybody else.
Well, I mean, I would, but they would be
Squatters.
They would be the first.
Yeah, great beers,
in my opinion.
You got any other favorite Squatters beers, or is that
I'm not much of a beer drinker. That's
really?
the thing. I had a bad experience with beer when I was 4 years old. And never.
It stuck with you all these years.
It stuck with me.
Yeah.
Growing up on a farm, my grandfather used to drink Olympia.
Oh, geez.
Terrible stuff.
Yeah.
And I really didn't have a concept of what it was. It was just, it was a hot day. We were cutting up potatoes to plant, because that's how you plant potatoes. I don't know if you knew that.
With beer?
No.
Oh, no.
you cut up the potato, and you had to make sure each piece had an eye on it.
Yeah.
And then you throw those in the ground, and they'll grow potatoes.
Well, like people do with the glasses in the window and with
exactly. I don't know, so you cut them up, and so we're cutting up to plant the potatoes. And it was a hot day, and I said, "Grandpa, could I have a sip of your soda?" And he chuckled and said, "Sure."
And he gave you the Olympia.
And I'm expecting Sprite, so I, oh man, just, and I start crying like a little bitch. And to this day,
and he's laughing at you.
He's laughing his ass off. To this day, whenever I have a sip of beer, flashback, sense memory, I can't.
You just can't do it.
Now, I can say that of the beer that I have sampled, that's good beer. that red ale, that is good beer. That is really good beer. But I'm not a beer drinker. Just can't. Just because of that. Yeah. Whiskey, vodka, I'm all over it. But not beer.
Not beer.
Not beer.
See, I love beer. So, anyways, let's go down the list. How can people, I know you're on Twitter.
Yes, at RFHKERRY on Twitter. Facebook is just Kerry J. Jackson. Geekshowpodcast.com is where the podcast is.
You're on iTunes, Stitcher, Mediocre Radio Network.
Mediocre Radio Network. Thank you, guys.
Yes.
And also, of course, listen to the show. Again, just have your radio on between 6 and 10 a.m.
Monday through Friday. You're
96.3 FM.
96.3 Monday through Friday. Yeah. And you guys, well, yeah, you're on iTunes. You can listen right from the website too, right?
Oh, yeah. Stream. Yeah.
X96.com.
Of course, I don't get credit for that, but.
Wow. See, I'm finding out all these things that I do wrong. I got to start just listen to
like
in
I
the
said,
car.
Just turn your radio on. Just turn it on between 6 and 10. That's all I ask.
And then they get that the transmitter catches what cars are listening to.
Yeah, it hears it.
Or what houses are listening to it.
It hears it. I don't know how the magic works, but it hears it.
Anything else you want to add, Kerry? I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Honestly, coming and sitting.
Thank you for having me. I'm just going to say that. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Very welcome.
And see, I wasn't so bad, was it?
No, you weren't bad at all. What advice would you give? I mean, somebody who wants to get into radio. Don't get into radio.
Don't get into radio.
Yeah.
No.
Start a podcast.
Start a podcast. Seriously. And I would say this to any corporate radio entities listening. You're crying every day, where's the new talent?
Yeah.
But you won't turn on a podcast. That's where all the new talent is.
Well, there's some great podcasters that deserve to have radio shows.
Absolutely.
And it's like, what the fuck is going on?
But at the same time, I would say to those podcasters, if they're ever approached by a radio station, tread lightly, my friends. Tread lightly. Those people will swallow your soul. And make sure that you go in, you do have to cooperate to a certain point, but do not cooperate so much that your soul is taken away at the end of that process. Because they'll try to get you, and they'll try to get you to think their way. And that's the wrong way. That old thinking, it's got to go.
Well, that's what I love about podcasts. You can do it your way.
Exactly.
You don't have someone telling you what to do.
So I would just say start a podcast and then send your podcast to a radio station and say, here's what I do. But get really good at it.
Yeah.
Get really good before you really...
Or just have fun with it. Just have fun with it.
Or just have fun with it, yeah.
Yeah, that's,
I mean, if you're trying to make a living on it, that's a different thing.
Yeah.
If you're just having fun with it, terrific. Have fun with it. You can make it be as loose and as silly as you want. But if you're trying to make it into a career, that's when you got to start. You follow the professional models. Listen to the Mark Marons of the world. What Adam Carolla has done is just amazing with his whole network that he's got going.
I know I said we were going to wrap it up here, but what podcast do you like? I always like new recommendations in case there's any.
Let me go to my Stitcher app, and I will.
I know you're a fan of the Stitcher.
I tell you what I listen to. I'll just go down the line. Improv for Humans with Matt Besser. I'm not a fan of improv unless it's the Upright Citizens Brigade. Okay. And Matt Besser was one of the original Upright Citizens Brigade guys. Thrilling Adventure Hour is fun. One that not a lot of people listen to that is really good, The Smartest Man in the World.
Never heard that one.
With Greg Proops.
I'll have to check that out, yeah.
He is very good. Let's see, The Dana Gould Hour.
That's a great show.
He's a comedian, very good. The Dead Authors Podcast, which is a great premise. It's Paul F. Tompkins as Orson Welles. And because he has a time machine, can go back in time and bring a dead author into the future and interview them.
That sounds fantastic.
And it's all made up as you go along. Penn Sunday School, Pod F. Tomcast is good. And I used to listen to Larry Miller a little bit more. I kind of fell off, but he's also.
So you listen to a lot of podcasts, then? I mean, if that's your list, I mean,
I listen to quite a few. It's like I said, I can't listen to the radio because it's work. I can't.
You just can't do it.
It makes me sad. Yeah. It makes my heart hurt to listen to local radio because it's terrible. Except for you, Doug Fabrizio. Except for you. We love you.
Oh, I love Doug.
Everything else stinks.
Great show. All right. Well, thank you very much, Kerry. And, maybe down the road we'll have to, we'll bring you back on and chat some more.
Anytime.
And
now I know where you live. It's easy.
Yeah. Now you can stalk me and find out, you can look in the windows at night.
Yeah.
Many thanks goes out to Kerry Jackson for coming on the podcast, sharing his story with the rest of you guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that conversation. Let me know what you think. Head on over to iamsaltlake.com/episode 74. Leave a comment. Tell me what you think. You can also drop me an email at iamsaltlake@gmail.com. Or better yet, call into the voicemail line, 385-202-5926. Tell me what you think of the show. Tell me what you think of the conversation that I had with Kerry, or just tell me what you love about Salt Lake City, Utah. I've got a lot of really great episodes, so you're going to want to make sure you subscribe on iTunes, or if you listen via Stitcher or Mediocre Radio Network, make sure you subscribe. That way you do not miss a single episode of the show. There's a few ways you can help out with the show. First of all, tell your family and friends about the podcast. That really, really helps out. Share any of your favorite episodes. Share this episode on your favorite social media site, Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Pinterest, whatever social media site that you love. Share the episodes with them. That way more people find out about the show. Leave us a review in iTunes. That really helps out with the show. It boosts our ratings and it gets us exposed to more people. That way more people find out about the show and find out about the awesome city that we live in. And so many of us are proud to call home. If you would like to come on the show, if say you have an event coming up, or if you're a band, or if you're just doing something really cool here in the Salt Lake City area, drop me an email. Tell me what you're up to, and I'd love to get you on the show. Got a lot of really great episodes ahead, and I'd love to pencil you in on the calendar. I think that's going to about do it. Thank you so much, everybody, for your support. Thank you for listening to the I Am Salt Lake podcast, and we will catch you midweek with another episode as I showcase somebody else doing really cool stuff in the Salt Lake City area.